Okay, thank you for having me. It's an honor to speak at this conference, and I hope you will get a better view of whistleblowers and their importance for our societies after my presentation. Let me start sharing the screen. I'm a journalist, and I've been a journalist for 25 years. And in my work, I've counted on sources providing information about wrongdoing, including corruption, but not limited to corruption, war crimes, for example. I had sources talk to me about war crimes in the former Yugoslavia. And I was always a fan of whistleblowers and journalistic sources. But then all of a sudden I became one. I became a whistleblower in 2009. I was working at the time at Politica Daily, which was at the time co-owned by a German publishing company and the government of Serbia. A very liberal-minded editor-in-chief invited me to come to Politica Daily, which is the oldest and most respected daily newspaper in the country. And I worked there for 4 years, but then the government changed and they wanted to get rid of the liberal editor-in-chief, and they installed a new editor and a new management, and they started censoring not just my articles, but articles of a dozen other journalists in Politica. And we complained about this. We went through all the stages that a whistleblower can use. We went internally first. We reported this to the editor-in-chief, the managers of the company, both the German manager and the Serbian manager, and the board, managing board of the company. So we went internally first. Nothing happened, except that we got a letter from the German co-owners saying that they are aware of political pressures on journalists of Politica, but nothing changed. Then we went externally because in the process we found out that the then Prime Minister, who you see on the picture, Mirko Cvetkovic, his company had a contract with Politica, and so the Prime Minister, who was in charge of overseeing the Serbian part of the shares in Politica Daily, was making money from a business deal with Politica. So we reported this to the parliamentary board on the conflict of interest, and then the Prime Minister said he would give up his shares in the company, but still it didn't affect our position in the newspaper. We were fired, and this is the letter from the company saying I was fired. And then we went publicly with stories of censorship and the conflict of interest of the Prime Minister. So we were fired nonetheless. And then a group of journalists decided to launch Pištaljka as a safe haven for whistleblowers and an online investigative website to investigate corruption, because at the time the media scene in Serbia was such that you couldn't publish any stories on corruption. So we launched in 2010 using our severance pay from Politica. And since then, in the past 10 years, we published more than 800 articles on corruption, abuse of office, and cronyism. A lot of them were based on stories of whistleblowers, and we also published interviews with whistleblowers. And from 2014, although we wanted to have legal support for whistleblowers from 2010, we only started this in 2014 when we got the funds to do it. And since 2014, we've provided more than 1,500 pieces of advice to whistleblowers and potential whistleblowers. And now we have 5 lawyers working with our journalists in Pištaljka, helping whistleblowers, which is exactly what we needed back in 2009. If we had had legal support and the support of the public back then, maybe the situation would have not been so dire for us. What we also do is, since the Serbian whistleblowing law was adopted in 2014, and the law stipulates that all judges that rule upon whistleblowing requests need to be trained by the Judicial Academy. We, together with the Judicial Academy and the Supreme Court, helped train more than 900 judges in whistleblowing procedures, and also with the cooperation of the Republic Prosecutor's Office, we trained more than 200 public prosecutors also to take on whistleblowing cases. We have so far represented more than 40 whistleblowers in court proceedings and won more than 30 cases. And this is, I think, maybe the most important thing for you. This is how the law was adopted in Serbia and what was Pištaljka's role in having it adopted. So by 2012, Pištaljka had already been in operation for 2 years, and then the government changed. The new government launched an anti-corruption campaign, and this was mostly a PR stunt for the new government to say that they are different from the old government. But we used this, this was a brief window of opportunity that we managed to use to push for the law to be adopted. And so Pištaljka was well positioned because we had already published stories on high-level corruption within the previous government, including a story on how the then defense minister invested in a super expensive apartment in the center of Belgrade. So we were well positioned in the public, and the new government seemed to like us, and we used this to push for the whistleblowing legislation. And so the first thing we did with the new government was insist that whistleblowers join the working group to draft the law. And we, after pushing the government to start the process of drafting the law. So we had 2 whistleblowers in the working group. I was in the working group, and so were 2 whistleblowers. One was a police officer, and another was a judge. And their experiences helped a lot in drafting the law. And also, we had help from the United States, the Council of Europe, and the European Union, the European Commission in Serbia. The US had Tom Devine, who you'll hear later in the day, of the Government Accountability Project, consult the working group, and his advice was crucial in drafting the law and having some of the best provisions anywhere regarding whistleblower protection. But however, I think the government, as I said, they launched the anti-corruption campaign as a sort of a PR stunt. And I think they wanted to pass the law in the parliament and end their engagement with this. But implementation was key. And had there not been for Pištaljka, implementation would not have been possible. So I mentioned the trainings and the legal aid we're providing to whistleblowers. And this was really something that was essential in having the law implemented properly. We also published stories about corruption and about whistleblowers and pushed for the courts to provide court protection to the whistleblowers. So these are some of the whistleblowers we are working with, we have been working with, because once you help a whistleblower, it doesn't end. We keep track of them. We are in almost daily contact with most of our whistleblowers because we are always on the lookout for more retaliation against them from their employers. So this is Borko Josifovski speaking at one of our conferences in Belgrade. And in the first row, the tall guy is the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić. So we always have government representatives at our conferences because then the media, the influential media in Serbia follow these conferences, and we use them to bring more light to whistleblowers. Borko Josifovski was head of the emergency medical service in Belgrade, and long before the whistleblowing law was adopted, so in 2005, he blew the whistle on some medical staff taking kickbacks or bribes from funeral homes to report where someone had died. And Dr. Josifovski established that in some cases, resuscitation was not provided to patients, to the dying patients, because the doctors and the medical staff were taking bribes from funeral homes. So what happened to him? He was fired immediately after going public with this information, and he couldn't get a job anywhere in the public health sector since 2006. When the law was adopted, our journalists started investigating again the story of the patients dying because of corruption, and found out that the anti-corruption agency and the prosecutor's office failed to investigate properly. And so we filed a new lawsuit using the new whistleblowing law, and we managed to get a first instance ruling in favor of the whistleblower, Borko Josifovski. And then things changed. The media started reporting about this. The doctor was a star in the national media for about 2 months. And although we lost when the government appealed the court ruling, the doctor said this was really a proper satisfaction for him, because 10 years after he blew the whistle, he got a proper redemption, so to speak, from the public, and he was no longer someone who was accused of putting a bad name to his colleagues, but instead someone who had helped bring truth to the Serbian public. This is Judge Biljana Mravić. She was a member of the working group to draft the law. So she blew the whistle on corruption in her court in a small town in Western Serbia in 2009. And then she suffered consequences by being removed from her position. She was reinstated in 2011, but then 2 years ago, she again became a whistleblower because she then reported political pressure coming from the new government wanting to sentence the mayor of the town where Judge Biljana works. And so she went public again, and we wrote a number of articles about her and helped fend off not only pressure from her, but also from her family, because the pro-government media was attacking her daughter and saying the judge was corrupt because the daughter had volunteered at a municipal kindergarten, and this was like a sort of a, they said, the pro-government media said that the judge was corrupt because the mayor controls the municipal kindergarten, and then the daughter received her voluntary position because the judge was corrupt. And so we managed to fend off this pressure by using the public and our reporting. So this is also an interesting case from the city of Novi Sad. Zoran Pandurov was a communal inspector, and he helped his colleague and friend Maria Beretka file a corruption charge against her bosses in the communal inspection in Novi Sad. And Zoran Maria was the first whistleblower to receive final ruling in her favor in Serbia, and Zoran was the first person connected to a whistleblower to receive such court protection. But then what happened? People started within his organization, within Zoran's organization, started turning to him for assistance in blowing the whistle. And here's what happened. Zoran's car was set on fire in front of his building one night. And he called me in the morning and said what had happened, and said, please don't publish anything because this will put off other whistleblowers from coming forward. But then after consulting with him, we decided we should better publish a story, and we did. And it was immediately picked up by a lot of media outlets. And then the prosecutors started investigating, and the perpetrator was found and fined for this. And then the all attacks on Zoran stopped. And then sometime after that, the bosses in the communal inspection were sentenced to for the corruption that Maria and Zoran had reported. Duško Kovačević is also from the city of Novi Sad. He's a police detective, and he reported torture at his police station, torture of a detained suspect. This is a case where we only went public when we were certain that no harm would be brought to both Duško and his family, because when he came to us, he said he was getting daily threats, and that someone had also threatened his teenage son. Someone came to his house and said, you better watch out what you're doing and what your father is doing. And so we worked with the prosecutor's office and managed to remove the perpetrators of torture. And only then did we go public. We published a story about Duško Kovačević, and he is now safe, and he has no more problems at his workplace, or there are no more threats against him or his family. So this just states that you need to work with whistleblowers all the time. So once a whistleblower, always a whistleblower, and retaliation can start all over. And this is why our lawyers, who you see here talking to Dr. Borko Josipovski, are always on lookout, and our journalists are always there to publish stories and bring the public side to the whistleblowers. So public support is also crucial. Without the support of the public and with some sort of public pressure also on the courts, the government and the influential employers would have the upper hand in retaliating against the whistleblower. By using the public support, we put the pressure on the employers and the government, and then the pressure on the whistleblower subsides. And we're also building trust between key actors such as the courts, judges, prosecutors, police officers, also whistleblowing officers. Each employer in Serbia that has more than 10 employees needs to have proper whistleblowing channels and a whistleblowing officer who is supposed to investigate internal tips from whistleblowers. And so we are also training these whistleblowing officers and helping connect all the stakeholders in this area. So I'll also need to stress that free legal aid is important, and without free legal aid, a lot of whistleblowers would not be able to have court protection. And like I also said, trainings are for all these stakeholders are very important. And so one thing that is very good in the Serbian whistleblowing law is interim relief, which means that the courts can provide, can reinstate whistleblowers if they are fired or transferred to a lower position within their organization. They can be reinstated within 8 days of filing for interim relief. And we use this a lot, and we have had more than 30 cases of whistleblowers being reinstated using interim relief. So in the end, I would like to thank Delna for inviting me, and also Amit Kabravala from the US Embassy for helping organize this. I am here for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vladimir, for sharing your story with us today and for the support you are providing to whistleblowers. It was really worrying to hear what whistleblowers have to deal, and let's hope that that it won't happen like that again. In your story, you told us a lot about your partners during creation of Pistelka and during the drafting of the law. You also mentioned that it is the cooperation with state institutions is very crucial. How much support Pistelka had before the law was passed on and afterwards, and any tips, suggestions, how to make cooperation more rational?
So from 2010 to 2012, we established cooperation with other NGOs, especially those in anti-corruption field, like the Transparency International chapter in Serbia, and some other smaller organizations. And so this was at that point, from let's say 2010 to 2012, we had a number of conferences. Like we had the first conference where whistleblowers spoke in 2010, and also a number of conferences on corruption in Serbia. And so this was like very important in building partnerships and establish a solid ground for future actions. And so, like I said, in 2012, when the government changed, the new government liked us, and because we had published stories of corruption of the previous government. But then, of course, we continued publishing stories of corruption within the new government, so I don't think they like us so much anymore. But never mind, we still had support from the Ministry of Justice, from the President, and this was key, in, like I said, in both bringing the national media to our conferences and shedding light on what whistleblowers are going through, but also in protecting against attacks on Pistelka and attacks against whistleblowers. So when the president comes to our conference, it gives a message to both government and private employers that Pistelka is a strong institution, and that when we and our lawyers step in to help a whistleblower, this will mean that we provide strong help, and that sort of like the government is not necessarily 100% behind us, but that we have cooperation with the government, and that that our stories and our legal expertise is there for whistleblowers.
Vladimir, one more question. Previous speaker Hans Groth told us about a case when police officers in the Netherlands were punished for satisfying their personal curiosity in looking into the data. There's a question, can the whistleblower be curious? And what you think about this dilemma between the looking into the data that you can't use, as it is strict information and so on too, but you are using it to find out possible violation, which is also maybe a violation of interests of all society. What do you think about this specific dilemma?
The Serbian whistleblowing law states that when a whistleblower sends an external report, so outside of their organization, or goes public, they need to protect the personal data of the people involved in the case. So any deviation from this means that the whistleblower may be even criminally liable. On the other hand, we recently had a case in the city of Niš in the south of Serbia where the employer released personal information of a whistleblower, and a couple of months ago the Supreme Court stated that this was a breach of the whistleblowing law and ordered the employer to pay damages to the whistleblower and to prevent any future misuse of personal data. So I would say that in our work, both as our lawyers and our journalists, we are very much focused on not publishing personal data, but we use them when investigating stories on corruption.
Thank you again, Vladimir, and I hope that we will all learn from your story and Pištaljka's